Welcome everyone to the Sunday Roast, and it is just myself and Madge. Madge, is 2030 now the 1930s? I shouldn't be laughing at that.
It feels like it. We got economic downturn. It's not as bad as the 20s, 1920s, but it's not great. Um, a lot of countries voting for right wingers. Could say I heard that one before. So yeah, people are talking about how broken the system is, how broken countries are, and how much they're going to fix them. You heard that one before, Mr. Historian?
No.
No, it's new. It's a new storyline we've got here. New season.
As a
Never
historian,
before.
I don't know of these things.
Oh, they don't teach you this in school,
I don't
in
teach
history
you this
class.
in
Yeah,
school as a historian.
yeah.
We just talk about numbers and
They,
economics.
they go straight to 1939. They don't
Yeah.
do the bits before
I hate to say it, but it's not true. I
that.
mean,
They go from
geez.
one World War to the other World War. Nothing happens in between those two to cause it.
Well, we've had the 2008 crash, haven't we?
Yeah.
And they had two. They had the immediate crash after World War One, and they had the 1928 crash as well.
I heard it
And
was a very
that's
depressing time, a greatly depressing time.
oh, good pun. But I mean, that's so apt. Do you know how
Yeah.
many inventions were made during that period, though, as a result of the lack of
I
money and creativity?
I've seen some of the meals people ate at the time, and I'm like, that's flour and water, my brother. Like that's
Gruel,
yeah,
gruel.
yeah,
Yeah.
peasant food. Yeah, but that's how
Well,
they lived.
you see some of the pictures from the States, and it's coffee and donuts being given out for free,
Yeah,
and then the queues are just round the block just for a
there
coffee and a donut.
there was a video of someone sharpening. You know those razors that they use at the barbers, like to cut beards and stuff. They were
Like the
like,
old
oh, what?
school ones.
Yeah, yeah, not the cutthroat, but like the ones you put into the safety razor, the
Is that
safety
actually
blade
what
one.
it's called?
It's
Is
the
that actually
safety
called
blade.
cut? It's not
It's
called. No, no,
nah, the
no.
one the yeah, it's called a cutthroat. I'm pretty
It
sure
is
the
actually called
one.
a cutthroat.
I think so. If
Wow.
not, well, we should call it that because it sounds way better. But those ones, like people would reuse them, like resharpen them. And someone's like, why we stop doing this? I'm like, that's a hygiene crisis for a start. That's probably the first reason why we don't use them. The other reason they're dirt cheap, but back then it wasn't because you don't have like mass production to the level we have now. So yeah, there's all sorts of like stuff that happened back then. As you know, a wise man, Solid Snake once said, necessity is the mother of invention. So yeah,
Mm.
and there was a lot of need back then. And
S-
luckily things aren't as bad now, but pretty bad.
Sellotape,
Yeah, is it
sliced bread. That's where you
best
get the
thing?
saying from.
Yeah, best thing since sliced bread, the depression.
God, shouldn't laugh, should we? But
No, no,
why do you think then, if that's a yes, that we're back to the 1930s, that 2030 is going to be the 1930s?
wouldn't say it's gonna be the same, but have you lived under a rock? You've been hiding out in your in a cave?
You laugh about that, and it does feel like that. But I tell you something else. There's a lot of accounts in America.
Yeah,
Again, I'm focusing more on America. That's more
yeah.
my expertise with the depression over there. People were doing that. I wonder if have you been living in a cave? That is what they were doing in the
Yeah.
1930s because they couldn't afford homes.
It's I don't think it'll be as bad as that. But you look at what Trump's doing, threatening Greenland, taking out the leader of Venezuela, threatening Iran. I mean, the Iran actions are not off the table officially, but I think they will get a deal because Iran are willing to negotiate and is given too much time. Like, when you do that kind of move, it'd have to be very like quick. Whereas Iran are going to be on full alert for a while. I mean, doing it during Ramadan would be diabolical, to be fair. But it does look like it in America, especially when you look at ICE, which are effectively the secret police, just rounding up minority groups. Seen that one before.
What do these two things have in common? TikTok Trevor here, time for your daily history update. Are ICE and the Gestapo kind of the same thing? I don't know. To the whiteboard! Let's see if we can't find some similarities, shall we? They both have the power to arrest someone without a warrant. Check. They both have the power to imprison someone without a trial. Check. They both have the power to deport someone. Check. They both have the power to send someone to a foreign concentration camp from which there's no return. Check. Do both operate ignoring habeas corpus? Check. And do both operate without government oversight with no real consequences if they overstep their authorities? Check. The only real difference I can see at this point between ICE and Gestapo is that ICE wears masks because they haven't got the balls to show their face when they arrest a terrified innocent person in the middle of the night. Folks, the key thing to understand is that the Geheime Staatspolizei, the secret state police, wasn't secret. The Nazis wanted people to know that they were there to breed fear because fear creates silence and silence leads to complicity. And I know that there's some people out there watching this going, ICE is not the same as Gestapo. Fine. Do some research, get in the comments, and prove that I'm wrong. But for anybody that thinks that this is one of the harbingers of the slide towards authoritarianism, then like and share this video with as many people as possible. Get the conversation going, because conversation leads to people seeking knowledge, and knowledge is what saves democracy.
Deporting people, ignoring the courts. Seen that one before.
He did it this week.
Yeah, I mean,
He just went, fuck you to the Supreme. He went, fuck you to the Supreme Court. And then he said they're a bunch of Democrats. And it's like, you appointed them. You
three.
nuts.
Yeah, 3 out of 7, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Others think they're being politically correct, which has happened before far too often with certain members of this court. And it's happened so often with this court. What a shame. Having to do with voting in particular, when in fact they're just being fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and the radical left Democrats, and not that this should have anything at all to do with it. They're very unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution.
So it's like an overwhelming majority of Republicans who don't agree with him. So he comes out and says they're not a democratic institution. They're not.
That's the thing, though. We saw that with the Daily Mail. They called it enemies of the people, and after the Brexit vote with the judges, like, and that's the thing with the court system is if there's no mechanism to enforce anything, what is the point of the judicial system? Like in America, what are they going to do? Go arrest the president? Like, are they going to fight over him? Who's going to do the arrest? The FBI? Like, genuinely, like, who's meant to do this stuff? And so, like, America was always built on norms.
Well, my understanding under the Constitution is that it's down to the Senate and Congress to do it. And that the impeachment, if it had gone through, ironically, is, I think Corey Brett Snyder said on our podcast, if they'd actually done that properly, he wouldn't have been able to run again. That's the point of the impeachment. Yeah. So then you go into this crazy land where you go, he tried to kill you, and you went, that's all right. That's what the Senate did. Work that one out, Madge. I can't.
When you build a system based on norms and not laws, that's where you run into these kind of problems. Like we saw that here with the Brexit stuff as well. It was built on norms. The idea, like, politicians would lie, but it'd be more spin rather than outright lies and things like that. Well, that's probably not true, but it was kind of, we have a system of norms, and I think the Brexiteers and kind of stuff ran over it pretty aggressively. When they tried to prorogue Parliament, like that's very much unheard of, pulling a stunt like that, and that's why the courts got involved at that point, and we were lucky they did. But point being is that those guys ran roughshod over all of those rules. Like, when you got the speaker talking about Erskine May, I'm like, who's that? Like, you're basing something off what, like the 1800s or some nonsense.
I don't even know who that is. Who is?
It must have been someone like a speaker like centuries ago or something. He kind of set a bunch of not rules in the sense of like these are the things that have to happen, but he sent a bunch of norms like this is what's expected. Or you say right honourable gentlemen and all that kind of nonsense. But you build like a system built on honour, and then you fight against people who have no honour. What do you do at that point? Like, your system doesn't work.
God, that makes me think of, I want to call it, it's not Brunt, is it? Who worked for Tyrion Lannister when he fights the cloaks, and the queen's like, the queen of the castle's like, you fight with no honor.
No,
and he's like, yeah, but he did, and he's dead through the hole.
In a reference you won't understand now, it's Ghost of Tsushima, where Lord Shimura says to his nephew Jin Sakai, he says, you have no honor, because he's stabbing people in the back and using poison and stuff. And then his nephew says to him, you're a slave to you're a slave to it. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of what's going on now, where you have one side who have no honor and the other side that are trying to play by the rules, who just don't get it. People like Sakir, who doesn't understand the rules of the game, have changed, and he's not adapting well enough at all, and that's why he's getting smoked in the polls. And you guys will know the by-election result by the time this goes out, but I would not be surprised if Labour lost.
The story of the evening.
Well, yes, it's an absolutely cataclysmic result for Labour, effectively. They've lost something like half of their support from the last general election. Less than 2 years ago, of course, have switched across to the Green Party, who've won by an absolutely stonking margin. Quite the victory lap we heard there from Hannah Spencer earlier. And I think what was particularly interesting is that the issues that she was highlighting in her speech that she believes are the reasons that people have decided to switch to the Greens were about the cost of living, were about the importance of investing in the NHS and the importance of getting out there and listening to people within the constituency.
I think this by-election's kind of brought out the worst in the political parties in terms of stuff Reform have been saying, stuff Labour have been doing with their kind of adverts and stuff. Like the Greens have been quite aggressive as well in some of the stuff they've said. So I think it's kind of brought out the worst in those three parties, still kind of vying for it because it's a big statement. You know, if Labour hold on to it, I think they don't gain too much. They kind of show that, you know, they can still win seats and whatever, or hold on to seats, which is good. If the Greens are obviously a big statement that things are moving to the left and that they have got momentum. And if Reform win it, it's kind of a disaster in the sense of like, it does show you that despite Farage saying he's going to repeal all of these rights and things like that, people in these areas don't care and they just want radical change. Like, you know, I'm talking about radical right-wing change in terms of dismantling the state, at least parts of the state. Because the Greens are looking at expansion.
Dismantle. Like trust
me,
that state
people
does not have checks and balances.
Everyone thinks, yeah, you don't have anything to lose. Like with the Brexit stuff, there are so many people who said, oh, you know, it can't get much worse than this. It got much worse than this. So, like, you know, with that stuff, they could gut the safety net even more than it is now. There are, trust me, they could move to a US style judicial system. There are many things you know, Reform could do to make things a lot worse than they are now. They could start a trade war with the EU if they wanted. Genuinely, they could.
They'd lose.
Yeah, they would lose.
What the hell would you do? No one talks about
slash and burn. You slash and burn. All
Gibraltar? Northern Ireland?
The geezer allegedly made loads of money from shorting the pound during the Brexit referendum. If you know what's coming, if you can kind of what Trump's done in America, where you can kind of set the market in a direction, you make loads of money. Kwasi Kwarteng, all of those city traders knew what was going on. They started, you know, betting against bonds. They started shorting the pound. They made a fortune, an absolute fortune.
Have you seen the documentary?
You know where things are going. No, I haven't.
There's a documentary that came out, and it was really interesting. Admittedly, I only got halfway through it, not because it was bad, but for a variety of reasons. And the initial points were Nigel Farage came out and conceded that he lost hours before he lost, and everyone's going, "He's never done that before. Why is he doing that there?" And then he flipped, I think, or no, he continued, I think, and then he flipped once obviously the results came out. So he continued that. He came out twice on TV saying it was like neck and neck. So he went from we've lost to neck and neck to win. And everyone's going, he's never done that before. That's really dodgy. But it was an actual documentary I hadn't even seen before, but it's 7 years old, detailing, like forensically, that it looked dodgy as anything that Farage had done that.
No one really knows what the future is going to look like.
That's a defaced union, Jack. You're not allowed to deface us.
The shocking defeat of the Remain campaign.
We've got our country back!
Caused the largest collapse of any major currency in the history of the modern global financial system.
You could literally watch the pound falling off the edge of the cliff.
If the last time we saw falls of 8%, I'm not sure we actually know.
People in the City of London were running their own private polling to get information about the vote while it was still happening.
It was probably one of the most lucrative nights for the hedge fund industry that there had ever been.
And you're saying everyone's talking about it and no one's really, again, why is no one being prosecuted? Because that's playing with the system like Trump did. And that's even fucked. Like, we've just arrested Mandelson for doing something similar by giving out like trade secrets. Of course, not about the thing, about giving out trade secrets and giving insider information. Donald Trump did the same. Do you remember on the stock market where he came? Yeah. He announced that the stocks are going to drop. Like, that's insider trading, but you've told everyone. So is that insider trading?
The thing is,
told it to everyone?
I think if you're not the one making the trades, you can kind of get away with it. But the problem is, like, the guys inside his cabinet, and like they can leak out information, or Trump's going to put a tariff on these countries. They can easily put that information out. So that's the problem. Where, like, if you know how the markets operate, you can make loads of money, and they have made loads of money. That's the problem. Like Mandelson giving out that information to Epstein. Epstein gave that out to other people. When they wanted to do, I think it's the banker's tax, Gordon Brown wanted the banker's tax, you had one of the heads of a bank in the US saying, if you do this, we will pull services out of your country. Like, we'll fuck you up. And that's why Gordon Brown's so pissed off, because he got undermined by that absolute prick in Mandelson. Mandelson, by the way,
that's what actually happened. Like
yeah,
that was the whole thing. It wasn't just that he gave it to Epstein. It's like Epstein then leaked
Epstein
it,
gave that
and
information
then
to that
it
guy.
absolutely got pushback.
Yeah,
And
because
then
I
we had a
think
control over our prime minister, basically. Because
I think Mandelson didn't want that law to go through, and that's that you know, not that law, that tax to go through, because Mandelson started working in the New York financial industry at that around, I think it's just after he got fired by the Labour Party, so probably like mid/late 2000s. That's why Epstein was telling him, get a job in the city, go have coffee with this guy, go mingle with these people. That's why he got inside information. That's why Gordon Brown's pissed. Gordon Brown's well mad at him. You know, he's like, "Yo, feds, call me." He said, "Yeah, police, call me. I got information on this guy." There's a reason for that. Yeah, Gordon
so he's a
Brown's fuming.
traitor.
He effectively, yes. That's why they got getting him for misconduct, because that is betrayal. He's undermining his own country. But that's what I mean. This is the guy who Keir Starmer hired because he's a master of the dark arts. What do you think the dark arts is? What do you think? What do you think that stuff is? Like, do you think it's just, oh yeah, you know, he knows spin or he can bully journalists? No, you don't hire guys like that 'cause you have no idea what he's got in the closet, especially after you knew he was hanging out with Epstein. As soon as you hear dude hung out with Epstein after the you know, the charges that he got put in prison for, the really watered down charges, I'm like, cool, don't need to speak to this guy ever again. You know, I'm not going to be seen in public with him. He still hung out with him.
I didn't know it was that bad. But then Gordon Brown met Epstein.
The thing is, there's a meeting. What was it, after 2000? After he got Fuck's sake, Gordon Brown. All right.
And no one's talking about it.
Yeah.
I actually gave it to a couple of newspapers. They didn't publish. And I'm going, he's all over the port. I've said this now for 2 weeks. No, I've not seen a big newspaper talk about it. He's all over that port and getting it financed. And he got Sultan, who asked for the torture video.
Which port is this?
Thames Gateway, the brand new deep sea port. It looks like Epstein, Sultan, David Stern, and Epstein were all messing around with getting the finance sorted with the port. And I can't tell. It seems to be two David Sterns. There's a David Stern that worked as a personal assistant to Andrew. And then there is another David Stern, I think, in banking. So I'm not quite sure. Oh, it could be the same person, but it's very difficult to tell. It does seem to be that there are two.
You always got to be careful with that kind of stuff, because you don't want to implicate the wrong person, especially something as bad as this. But yeah, you know, Keir Starmer showing great leadership in hiring Mandelson back, and Morgan McSweeney showing how much of a genius he was when they hired him, despite the fact the FT literally questioned Starmer about getting Mandelson back, despite the fact that he hung out with Epstein after the arrest. After it was public knowledge that that man, you know, the charge they got him on was you know, like soliciting a minor for prostitution. It's like, no, it's of a minor. That's what happened there. Let's be serious now.
But then it gets worse, because Mandelson also said that he thought if it was in Britain, this wouldn't happen. And you're going, what does that? That's in an email. And you're going, what does that mean? Is it because they were 17, or is it because there's a system that will protect you once you reach a certain level of power?
I don't know. That's a tough one. But he would be protected, to be fair. Like, a lot of those people are.
Oh, you then look at that Crusader Dickens interview with Nick Ferrari, and you go, right, well, you've totally fucked up there. No one's talking about that. And because she didn't get off her fat ass and actually go and investigate like a fucking detective.
Well, she did exactly what was expected of her, which is to do nothing. Look, I'm telling you, there's a reason why politicians generally leave the Met Police alone and the Met Police leaves politicians alone. Their relationship's symbiotic. Neither one looks at the other because they don't want the light reflected on them. Because if it does, the public won't like what they see. The fact that there were police officers guarding Prince Andrew at the time when he was doing all of these alleged things, right? They would have seen it. They would have known about it. Heck, they would have stayed in in Epstein's mansion as well.
To
protect him.
Wait. You know they've got evidence now that they did that, because Epstein's in the email saying there's two protection officers, I think, in New York, and he's having a debate where to put them, because he's going, I've got room for one, but I haven't got room for the other. and then they're sorting out secret passwords to be able to access Epstein's house. So you've got to have that passcode to be able to enter, to be able to, and the security know about it. And again, Crusader Dick was asked by Nick Ferrari, have you checked the logs with the security detail? I don't want to talk about that. Of course you don't want to fucking talk about that, because you want to protect him, because you're a piece of shit.
That's what I mean, though. She did exactly what she was expected to, which is to ask no questions. When you don't want to know something, you just don't ask. This is that way you don't have a definitive answer. And when anyone asks, oh, did you investigate this? I'd be like, no.
But she
And
said,
if they asked why, I just said it wasn't needed.
She used the excuse, she went to the Crown prosecution. But then it's that typical game, isn't it? Well, I went to them and they're going, but it's not up to us. That's, it's like that
But
Trump
the thing
play, isn't it?
It's up to the police to charge it, or is it up to the CPS to charge? Which one is it?
I think it's up to the Crown prosecution to begin to go, okay, there's enough evidence here that we should begin an investigation.
So, but the police never bothered to bring anyone in under questioning, because then it's up to the CPS, isn't it? If that's the case.
I don't know.
If the police bring you in for questioning, they can ask you a load of stuff and they have to release you after a while, right? So I'm assuming it'll be up to the CPS.
Probably.
Yeah, it'll be up to the CPS at that point to say whether you're charged or not. So you can't really blame the CPS when you never brought these people in, because you can question them without arresting them or anything like that. Like Mandelson got arrested, but you can bring him in and say, look, we've got some questions to ask, and you come down to the station. You're not under arrest. Like there's no obligation, but there would be a record of that.
It feels like the whole thing's rigged.
It is.
Once you get to a certain point, or when you're in this, and the irony is, Epstein was telling Bannon how to do this as well, and like how to rig the system so you protected yourself, and he seemed to know all these little laws. Like he told him to set up a media outlet because that gave him certain protections within politics. But not to deviate too much, but when I watched Farage's speech this week, he was interviewed and asked questions by about 8 different journalists. None of them asked him about Bannon. None of them asked about Nick Candy and the treasurer. And you're going, is this what you're doing as a job? Are you and the worst part about it was most of the questions were just rehashing old shit that we already know the answers to. Yeah. What's your policy with this? What's your policy with that?
Well, that's why they get invited. That's why these people get invited on to these shows and onto these panels, because they're not going to ask good questions. They're not going to ask serious questions because you're not going to come back. That's the point.
Going on to question time then. How the fuck has Marina and Gemma not been invited on to question time?
I don't know. Look, it's one of the things that's very insider. Like even the people they bring on is constantly the same kinds of people over and over again. It's the same guests, because I think it's partly rigged, and it's partly because producers just find it easy. They've got like a list of names they go through, and they bring in the same kind of people week in and week out. They just rotate them in and out because it's just easy. Why would you bother looking for new talent? Like, why would you bother looking for people who would be good on a panel show or whatever? You just keep bringing on the same people. It's just, there's no effort in it. They're safe. That roughly what they're going to say. They're not going to say anything too offensive or anything like that. So then, you don't have to bleep much out or say, "Oh, we apologize for this offensive message." That's how it goes.
Konstantin Kisin keeps being pulled on.
Yeah. Also, if you want to shift it over to the windows, you bring on certain people who are going to push it. The fact they gave Farage a season pass, it wasn't just because he gave them good numbers. It's because he had no life. He was literally like, "Yeah, anytime you need me, just call me." That's why he's accessible. And so, like, yeah, with these shows and stuff like that, they should invite more people on. Like, I saw Starmer, as annoying as it is, he was like, "Oh, we want more content creators on." Not to fucking ask questions of the Prime Minister. What are they going to ask him? What's the name of your cat? Or some dopey ass questions. Like, no, like, but in terms of these other shows, like, what's the point of having, the Telegraph writer on and a Guardian writer on? You can bring on, there's so many more interesting guests you can have onto these like panels and things like that, when they bring on the same sorts of people, boring, kind of middle class people who don't have much to say about anything.
Yeah, it's true. Like, I've not seen any I just had a weird. So Nigel Farage has been on there loads, right? He's leader of the party.
Yeah.
I've never seen Starmer on there. I've never seen Ed Davey on there. I've never seen Zach Palancy's been on there, which is interesting.
Yeah. I think with the leaders, they don't normally go on. Like Starmer's too busy about his PM, and PM would never go on unless they did like a host of leaders.
But beforehand,
he was relatively a nobody before. He wasn't EU Brexit secretary.
But he's still leader of the party.
He's
also when he was leader. He never went on. And
He's
he's
also
Ed Davey.
To be fair, if he went on, he'd probably get laughed at. He's really shit at interviews. He's bad. He's bad at interviews and stuff. Ed Davey's like similar, where Ed Davey like he's a charisma vacuum as well. A lot of the Lib Dems apparently aren't very happy with him, and I said at the time he was a bad pick, especially because he. Do you want to hear something really funny? You might have seen it already. He was the one that said Prince Andrew is a great pick for trade envoy.
I am just going to remind you of what you said yourself when you were business minister. You said this: I, for one, believe that the Duke of York does an excellent job. He's had long-standing success in the role, representing the continued interest by the royal family in supporting British business and international trade and investment. Since taking on this role, the Duke of York has built a substantial network of contacts at high level in both government and business overseas. These linkages help the Duke to make a major impact in a range of markets around the world. You go on to say, many who have worked with the Duke have found he's a real asset for our country in supporting UK business. I am proud to be here supporting the role of His Royal Highness.
Yeah, I'm really sorry I said those words. I didn't know what we know now, but I want to apologise unconditionally. I'm particularly thinking about those women who may have heard those words, who were victims of Epstein, and so it was wrong. But I didn't know what we know now. And what's interesting when you look at the debate you've quoted from, Sally, is that Epstein wasn't even mentioned, and that shows how wrong the rules were. The debate was called by an arch-Republican, Paul Flynn, who wasn't known for holding back, but even he didn't mention Epstein, and he wasn't able to because of the rules that were governing how we debate the royal family back then. And, you know, I'm angry about what happened back then, and it makes me even more determined that the rules are changed.
One of the reasons, though, that conversation was happening at the time was because there were concerns about the former Prince Andrew back then.
Yeah, and he was removed 2 months later from being the trade envoy, and quite rightly so.
Well, you go like that, right? Did you see the clip of Boris defending Andrew as well?
Is this recent or is this old? Please say
this is old. This is literally after. This is after the Andrew allegations. Immediately after.
Prince Andrew, let's be very clear, is a guy who does a huge amount of. Prince Andrew, let's be very clear, is a guy who does a huge amount of unsung, unheralded work for this country, and people, they go on and on about air miles and so on. Actually, I've seen that guy get out there and sell this country, try and help British firms to get business around the world. He does a huge amount of good and a huge amount of hard work. So if you ask me whether I have sympathy for him, of course I do.
So parking him on the sidelines isn't great for Britain, then, is it?
Well, I'm not convinced, by the way, that he is parked on the sidelines. I think that he does a great deal, as I say, of unsung and unheralded work, and he's a very
we need him back out there, not
familiar and welcome figure in the governments and countries around the world, because he helps to open doors. And for, we may think it's bizarre, but somebody who is the second son of the Queen is felt in many parts of the world to be an interesting and significant figure, and they want to receive him cordially, and people who come with him are they want to hear what business suggestions they have, and I think that people should respect that.
Boris Johnson, the guy with that famous quote from the Nick Ferrari show about historic allegations, so that's not surprising.
Backed up the wall.
Yeah.
I think an awful lot of money, an awful lot of police time now goes into these historic offences and all this malarkey, and 60 million pounds I saw was being spaffed up the wall on some investigation into historic child abuse and all this kind of thing. I mean, what on earth is that going to do to protect the public now?
What's the point? And then again, it goes back to what I was saying. If he'd done that properly and got off his fat ass and done it, you would have then gone, oh, Mandelson's been giving out trade secrets. Yeah, I better go and arrest him.
The thing is, I don't think we'd ever have known that bit because of the what do you call it? It's in the Epstein files, all of that stuff. I don't think we would have got access to all of those documents because there wouldn't have been a need to investigate Mandelson, I think, at the time.
But that's the point. You don't know until you go and investigate, and they didn't investigate, and they told us that there was no reason to investigate.
There was for Mandelson. In
But
fairness,
they could have gone to the FBI and said, "Do you have any documents relating to these people in regards to Epstein?" And they already had ideas about the connections between them. It wasn't like absolute shock.
I think with Prince Andrew, it's a fair bet. I think with Mandelson, not as fair, I'd say. But Prince Andrew, 100%, because there are pictures of them. They literally got him in 4K in what Central Park walking together.
Walking with them.
Yeah, that's
But
it. He's done.
Then you still go to the FBI and go, "What documents do you have related to anyone in the UK and Epstein?" The documents were already there. They collected them at that point, and none of them got off their ass and actually did anything about it.
It wouldn't surprise me if the FBI would have stonewalled it anyways, given that that's what they did originally to a lot of the victims. So
again, I go, you don't know until you know.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you go, they didn't want to investigate, and they told us that on air that they weren't going to investigate.
Yeah,
that's the circular thing with this. It's like I can't imagine. I'm just thinking of like a Sherlock Holmes thing. It's literally going, well, unless we've seen like the Sherlock Holmes going in the book. Well, unless I've seen the person in the room with the knife, blood on them, I'm not really going to go and do anything to investigate. The story ends.
Yeah.
And that's what we're getting here. And you're going, we know for a fact that, Sherlock Holmes would go, well, we've got some evidence, so let's go and see if we can figure it out. And it's like, this is basic fucking police work.
He was also on drugs a lot.
Who?
Sherlock Holmes. Yeah.
Yes. I believe he did, didn't he? I think he took cocaine or something.
Yeah, so maybe that's the secret. Maybe Cressida's got to go hit the labs. And then maybe she would have actually solved some crimes,
That's where she's gone wrong.
Yeah.
He hasn't taken enough cocaine.
Clearly. But no, like I said, like with those kinds of people, they don't want to. The best way not to know something is just don't ask. And that's what they did. They protect the royal family for a long time now. Epstein visited fairly often. I want to say he's visited a couple of times. With that Pizza Express story, they could have verified that. But then they chose not to. I mean, police officers, do you remember a time when you and Andrew went to Pizza Express in Woking and you had a pizza there? Do you remember that? You're a member of the royal family going to a pizza chain.
Well, have you seen all the stuff about the code about pizzas in Epstein? And the beef jerky?
Don't ruin pizza. Don't ruin pizza. Don't ruin pizza. Don't ruin pizza. I don't want to know.
And beef jerky. Do you like beef jerky or do you stay away from
it? Probably. I'm not the biggest fan, but I'd rather not get it ruined either.
There is a ton of, and it's clearly coded language. What we don't know is what is that code, and it's probably it might never
in
be
another book, probably another book somewhere.
So you're going to write a book about the coded language inside the Epstein files? Is that what you're saying?
There'd be like a cipher or decipher somewhere. Like he wouldn't have all of it in his head. Like there'd be probably some sort of book where he's got the codes in there or something.
So
or an email.
But there's a what appears to be a diary by a young girl that's coded as well, like a cipher. Are you aware of that?
No.
And it's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. I'll carry on with the pizza stuff. You and I have know what beef jerky is. We've had it. It's dried out meat, right?
Yeah.
There's a point where he's talking about beef jerky being stored in a freezer.
Right.
Would you store beef jerky in a freezer?
No, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And he's talking about beef jerky being stored in a freezer. And you're going, what are they talking about? Then there's the bit with the pizza where they're talking, I think it's Epstein. He's talking about the glistering look of a fresh pizza. And you're going, what is that? And then
what do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that? It's like this obsession with pizza and grape soda. Oh, get me some pizza and grape soda. Oh, I've run out. Or like going nuts because he's run out of beef jerky. I haven't got enough beef jerky. And then you go even deeper down the rabbit hole. Have you heard about the sulfuric acid?
That's the stuff that demons smell of, right?
God, I hadn't even thought of that. But you're right. I think that is what they're meant to, like rotten eggs is another description, which is sulfur. Another way of describing the smell of sulfur is rotten eggs. There is an email of him ordering the day that he found out that he got indicted or was indicted. I can't remember if he found out or not. He ordered 330 gallons of sulfuric acid. So the argument is, to make it less conspiracy theory, is that he has a salination plant and he's got swimming pools and you can use it for that. My understanding at the moment is people have looked through the records and they can't find him ordering that at any other point. So you've got this weird code about pizza, you've got this weird code about beef jerky, and we know that he's got some sort of informant in the FBI and the CIA
Probably more than
and
one.
the DOJ, because we've got multiple witnesses saying they reported him to the FBI and the DOJ, and then they get death threats from either them or strange phone calls or people walking past them making threats at random points. And you're going, this is clearly an internalized system that's been protecting him because he is clear. He was a massive asset. You know, all the stuff we've just talked about. Former PM of Norway's been arrested or charged. An ambassador in Norway's been charged, and finance minister has been charged, I think, in Slovakia. I think it's commerce or finance. Inside the Trump administration, you've got the commerce secretary, Elon Musk, who's backing Trump again, shock, and you've got Donald Trump. And you're going, you look at that network, that's insane on its own. Plus the Prime Minister of Israel, who's all over it.
What is nuts is more people outside of America have been charged over this stuff than people in America, despite the fact that Epstein's network was very much mostly in America. So that was a bit weird.
I'll give you, you know, only 5% of the people that are being grabbed by ICE are convicted of any crime.
Yeah, I've heard that kind of stat because they just grab people. Anyone who's a minority, they just grab them and they just arrest them, and you get disappeared.
So there's probably more offenders inside the White House than there have been grabbed by ICE.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, you can say that because Trump has been convicted.
Yeah, I mean, there's at least one. Now, ICE need an average hit rate of 1 or 2, and then you can make the argument. But it is kind of crazy that it's America just so passive. Like they talk about how cool they are with their guns and all this stuff, right? If there was a tyrannical government, we would overthrow them. It's like, yeah, you might have to do that soon. Like there's a lot of people like minorities and stuff that support ICE. And I'm like, they're gonna get you, dog. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they're gonna get you.
Was it Martin Niemöller who said I didn't say anything when they came for the communists?
Oh, I know the famous thing, yeah.
Yeah, and then he continued. It's no different here.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the passage of like how you become a dictatorship, and this is like under sort of an academic analysis. I'll read it out because it's quite chilling. So you have your origin story, which is, meaningless in many ways. But then you've got violence, and you can go, they were called the Farage riots. We can cite people like Tommy Robinson committing violence. It's not shocking. I mean, literally, I think he was outside a journalist's home threatening them.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got this weird thing of acceptance. And then Donald Trump with the coup, which all the Americans can't handle. Like, they don't want to even call it a coup. Some of them. But I've heard people on both sides, like...
Yes, they don't acknowledge it's them. They don't acknowledge that it can happen in their country. That's why. They think it's going to happen elsewhere, in so-called third world countries. The Middle East. Can't happen here. We're the greatest democracy, even though they're really flawed.
Jesse Ventura, you aware of this guy? He's like an actor, wrestler, and he ran for government. Even he came out and said the only oath I've ever said is to the Constitution. That's the only thing that matters, not to the president. And he's then cited, he was ex-Navy SEAL. I can't remember what country he was in, but he said...
You know how I know we're a third world country? Because in third world countries, they have the military doing their police work in the cities when you walk around. I was in the Philippines the day Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law and went under dictatorship. We went from nobody to a guy with a machine gun on every corner. That's what happens in a dictatorship. In comes the military. That's what's happening here. People better wake up to it. You want to read something? Then read your history of Germany and start comparing the tactics of what happened in 1930s Germany to what's happening here.
Wake up.
They're all gung-ho, armed to the teeth, bulletproof vests, state of the art equipment.
Yeah.
And part of them are from January 6th.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, like, they've got effectively got secret police. They got immunity from prosecution, and they just grab anyone. They don't care. They shot a lady in her car. You're trying to drive it away,
and a guy protecting a woman.
Yeah, they don't care, and they lie. They make up stuff. They won't release body cam footage and things like that. Like, they are worse than the police somehow. American police were really bad, but holy shit, ICE is like just so much worse.
I didn't know this, but it's interesting you bring up the police cams. Apparently, they with your state police, they've got body cams that are attached to a server. ICE just have cams attached to nothing, which is why when you saw that guy filming around the car, he was filming using the phone because it's not attached to a server, so they can pick and choose what they release. Because they could always just turn around, oh, footage got broken.
That's what police used to do in America. They used to do it all the time. It's like, oh no, that it's corrupt, or it wasn't recording or whatever, and that's when people got really pissed off about it. But yeah, like I said, they get away with a lot, and where are the Second Amendment, rights people now? Was it Fourth Amendment, whatever it's called? Where's the guys with the guns? I thought that was your whole thing, was we're going to stop a tyrannical government, and now ICE are on your street deporting people.
It's always quite funny, isn't it? Because they'll go, "We'll protect the Second Amendment," but then you bring up the other amendment. they haven't quite got the same passion. But I'll bet $1 they wouldn't be able to name any of the other amendments.
Right to free speech is the first one. Yeah, they can do the first one. The 1 and 2.
I would love to go. I'm not going to America, but I would love to go there and interview people on the street, and like some of these, like, just find people who are like Second Amendment activists, and then just ask, can you name the other 14? And then go, oh, you missed this one. It's about the right of Americans to own the moon, and just see.
Yeah. What about the right for Americans to own a naval destroyer? You forgot about that one. What about?
There is an American court case. I don't know if it got to the Supreme Court, where some guy was trying to claim that because the government had atomic bombs, individuals.
Yeah, I think he's right, to be fair. How are you supposed to fight the American government? What are you going to do with your little pea shooter when they've got a Predator drone? I don't think that's a fair fight.
No, but I mean, to control the United States, you'd have to have a massive surveillance system. You'd have to do what they've done in China, where everyone's card is linked to like a national insurance number, and then you can build in a system where you can give points to people for good and bad behavior. That's how you control it, because then you can't escape. It's like a web that you can't escape. But in America, I don't see that ever coming in. But also,
they could
go on.
They could do it in some states with Palantir, whatever they're called. You could pretty easily do it. Like the way they privatize things, it'd be very easy to pull a stunt like that, and people wouldn't really know about it until much later. You can link it to people's credit scores and stuff, so it wouldn't be that difficult. I mean, it's America after all. Snowden revealed that they're spying on everyone, and no one cared.
No, they didn't do anything.
Yeah, literally made no difference. If anything, it emboldened them, because they were just like, "Oh wow, no one gives a shit. We can do more."
That's the problem with not doing anything.
Yeah,
that Palantir stuff is obviously over here in the UK, which is disturbing, and it looks like we're pushing it out. I think personally we should just shut down Twitter and get rid of it out of the country. I think that would solve so many issues rapidly overnight by just cancelling it.
As a chronic Twitter user, I would disagree with you.
What, that it would? Are you just saying that because you're addicted?
Yes. As a chronic Twitter user, yes. As a drug addict, I would say getting rid of drugs is bad. Yes, I would say that, wouldn't I? Any further questions?
No, none. I mean, yeah, it's like asking a heroin addict to get rid of heroin.
Yes, don't.
But would you? Do you think that would ruin your life if you just shut it down and just went, you know what? Elon Musk is nuts. He's far right. He's white nationalist. Let's just shut him down.
There's a clip from the lawyer. I can't remember his name, from Simpsons, right? The really dodgy lawyer. He goes, imagine a world without lawyers, and it's like people like holding hands and the rape. Okay. Yeah. I can imagine it. Yeah, it'd probably be better. But do you know what? I'm not going to doom scroll Instagram because that place is a cesspit. So I'm not going onto Instagram. I'm not going to Facebook because it's full of boomers, right? Yeah, Twitter's all I have left, and he's already ruined that. So no, okay. That's all I've got left.
I wouldn't mind.
They've killed YouTube, man. They've ruined YouTube. All right.
I wouldn't mind a law having a psychological assessment on all politicians just to make sure that
They would never pass.
psychopath.
You could. They're all psychopaths. That's what they
No, they're not. You can't.
Yeah, they are.
Rush everyone. I ran as a fucking MP. I'm not fucking.
Your Honor, I
psychopath.
rest my case. I rest my case, Your Honor.
So
I
why are
rest my
you
case.
here again if I'm a psychopath?
Because I cover this stuff. Someone's got to keep an eye on you, psychopaths, don't they? Don't know what you're going to do next.
Enabling me to have a podcast and broadcast my.
Exactly. It's stopping you being an MP. You know, you could be like, oh, I don't have a podcast anymore. I best run in an election. No,
Well,
you're stuck doing this.
I'm starting to think a lot of these podcasters, political podcasters, that's what they're doing. They're
Yes,
building
'cause-
themselves a platform to then run as a.
Because a lot of them they think they're a lot smarter than they are. A lot of them have really bad takes, don't do any research, don't actually understand politics because they have no background in it, and don't do any reading. Yeah, a lot of them would make great politicians because they have no understanding of what they're doing. They are so far out of their depths, right? You got the guys who obsess over the EU, talking about, oh, well, yeah, let's just rejoin the single market, buddy. All right, pal, how are you going to do that? What's the mechanisms? Don't care. Oh yeah, you know, we're a big economy. Of course, the EU is going to take us back. Like, you sure about that? They want Ukraine. You know, apart from minerals.
Oh
that
no, I
country's
think they
completely
do.
waterlogged.
I think. I would say.
Not at any cost.
Look,
No, we won't
look,
walk it.
look. There's going to be mixed views. Some people are just going to be outright no forever for the UK to rejoin. It's too much of a hassle. Blah blah blah. And there'll be other people who hate the EU that wouldn't want us back in because it would show actually you can't hate the EU because it actually does a benefit. So you're always going to have people saying that.
What I'm saying is from the commentary cloud, the guys are like, oh yeah, we'll just rejoin the EU. It's like, how are you going to do that, pal? Do you understand how it works? No, you don't. And so that's what I mean. They'll act like we walk back in when it's not the case.
No. I think it'll be a long process. There's no way.
No, but I'm not
think-
saying you.
No.
There's
I'll
enough
be
people in
careful
the
there.
space who say that. There's
I
enough
think-
people in
I
the
think-
space.
I think there'll be a combination of things. I think it'll be somewhat fast tracked because having the UK back in solves a lot of issues that they're having right now. It would also look very powerful to the power of the EU, which is something that they obviously want. It would sort out the border in Northern Ireland. It would drop tensions. It would sort out the border in Gibraltar. Although that in itself would be a huge issue because Spain are probably going to go, give us Gibraltar.
This is what I mean. Though,
EU
the UK is fair game. Well, oh yeah, you want to rejoin the EU? Let's give us back the marble stuff back. You know, that's what the Greeks are going to be saying. Ireland are going to be saying, well, you know, we want a referendum on Irish unification. You're going to want to push that. Spain are going to be like, well, we
That's
kind
going
of
to
want
happen
Gibraltar.
anyway.
No,
Have
what
you
I'm
seen
saying
the
is
SNP?
they can
Have you
push
seen
it.
the
though.
SNP growing?
Yeah,
Sorry.
It's not surprised the Labour are shit in Scotland. But what I'm saying to you is, you give the other side loads of leverage to say, well, you know, if you want to, start the ascension process, we kind of want a referendum on Irish unification. You know, we want the Elgin marbles back. I think that's what it's called. We want this other thing back that you've stolen because Britain has a bad habit of stealing stuff from other places. You know, lots of countries lots of countries might want stuff.
I'd argue over the marbles, but yeah, there's not great.
But that's what I'm saying. Greece can be like, oh, you want to join, buddy? Give them back. And then if we say no, they can be like, cool, veto, bye, done. It's finished. That's what they have to say because each member state has a say on it. They got veto.
So you say that, and then I go, well, then they could just knock us with huge tariffs if they wanted to. At any
Yeah,
point.
but
We've
a
got
trade war
no
doesn't. A trade war doesn't benefit them. That's the thing, though. Like
Yeah, but
the thing is,
it doesn't damage them as much as it damages us.
yeah, but they don't want to. If you nuke, it's like what happened with Germany after World War One. What you don't want to do is completely destroy a country because they're going to hate you for it. What you want to do is make sure they're not really a rival, and that's kind of what they've done. They said like, we're happy to export to you. Yeah, we'll import some stuff from you, but you know where you're really strong in services. Yeah, we're not going to fuck with that. We're gonna stop you doing that. That's where the EU have hit us, really. Not hit us as in retaliatory, but as in we fucked ourselves because we're a service-based economy who can't export services as easily because of
Into the EU.
Brexit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're happy for us
But
not
we
to be a
can't
service
export
powerhouse.
goods either.
We can export goods.
Not easily.
Yeah, not easily. That's the point, though, isn't it?
But if you're an SME,
yeah,
like you might as well not bother.
That's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's guys that have moved their businesses to the EU. Cheshire Cheeseman, he set up shop in France. I think he sold
Did
up
he?
quite a lot. Yeah, he set up in France because it's just easier. Because you know to
Yeah, but is
export
it
cheese.
financially viable?
I don't know if he sold up, but he moved to France. There was a guy, a wine merchant, I can't remember his name. He moved to set up shop in France as well because it's not worth the hassle. It's just not worth it because they have all the paperwork there to deal with. So what I'm saying to you is, like, the EU are happy for us to kind of stay where we are, where, yeah, we're in decline, but we're not in terminal decline. We're not gonna go, you know, kind of full 1930s Germany and be like, oh, do you know who got us? It was the evil EU, and then we're going to start beefing them for no reason. That's probably not going to happen. But what they don't want is this big rival is sat on their doorstep. Is why they won't give us an agreement on equivalency. They want dynamic alignment. There's a reason for a lot of the decisions they made, which is no one wants a rival on their doorstep. It's the same argument I had with Bola Hatman, where it's like they don't want a rival on their doorstep. That's that strong.
But then you've got the other problem with the fact that you've got restore and reform. Like from their perspective, I can see why they're just going to go,
because they don't know what direction we're going in either, and there's no guarantee, right? Even if we rejoin the EU, there's no guarantee that reform wouldn't win or restore wouldn't win, and it'd be like Hungary on steroids, because you'd have a country that pays, the EU uses its, those financial like loans and grants and things as a weapon against smaller countries like Hungary, where they can say to Orban, it's like, cool, cut off your money, good luck. They can't do that to the UK because the UK is not a net it's a net payer, not a net receiver. So it'd be very difficult for the EU to say, well, we're going to cut off these grants and things to you. The UK's like, okay, don't care. And that's one of the things that they will run into. That's one of the things they know about bigger countries is you can't use financial penalties. It's very hard for the EU to deal with certain countries when they step out of line. Like Poland's much more difficult to deal with when they had the idiots in charge than Hungary is. That's the problem they've got. And so what they don't want is a country as powerful as the UK to come in and start being a dickhead again, because we thwarted a lot of their plans. They had to bypass us on like Eurozone bailouts and stuff.
I'm pretty sure that's not I think that's a right-wing trope that we were...
What am I, Tory enabler?
No. But I'd say, actually, if you look at the stuff that we did inside and the people, like you had Richard Corbett and you had Neil Kinnock inside, I'm not saying everything they did was good, but they were in high-powered positions within the EU working on side. And I've got no problem, like, it's a cooperative democracy. That's what I'd call it. I've got no problem with people having different views in there as long as they're all sort of moving in a similar path. And interestingly enough, all the stuff that's happened with Russia and the stuff that's going on with AI and the stuff that they're dealing with social media, like there's a lot of unification in there, and they're putting in new mechanisms to react quicker and quicker, which is a slow process to develop anyway. Like if you've created a brand new organization, you've got I don't know of a real template to this. Like the stuff that they've got in the America is not what we've got in Europe. Like I don't know of really any... Because essentially what you've got a bunch of leaders that elect a president. That's what you've got in Europe. You don't have that. The equivalent would be if the governors elected the president in America. They've got this other system where you have to elect a president. And I think a lot of people are upset about that in Europe and in the UK because they feel like, oh, we don't get to elect our leader. Who is this person? It's like, your leaders have voted. But I think it's a great mechanism. It's a control mechanism. Donald Trump has no control mechanism. Like there is, as again Corey brought up, there's the 25th change to the Constitution, which says that you can remove the president if necessary. But if you file it full of your own people, you're not going to get removed because they're just devout cultists.
Yeah.
Whereas in the EU, if you had Donald Trump doing half that shit, he'd be booted out instantly.
Yeah, they're trying like stop there, like go against their votes and things like that, and try and undermine them as much as possible. But like I said, with this stuff, like with the UK, we were very much the laundromat for Russian money. I think we would have been one of the key players in stopping any kind of sanctions towards the Russians and things like that. That's what I mean.
No, that's not true. There's loads of evidence to show that Britain was actually... There's a lot of evidence to show that the Russians were really angry about the UK leading the way in dealing with the Russians. You're absolutely right in Britain being a laundromat, but Britain's always been like that. That's what all those islands were for.
But that's what I'm saying. That we've laundered so much Russian money. Are we thinking about Roman Abramovich and all of those kinds of people who blatantly, got money from Russia through, some really dodgy means, and they laundered it through the UK? And then we were very slow in sanctioning them. Do you think if we're a member of the EU, we wouldn't have been the same very slow country? 100% we would have been. You know, they donated to the Conservative Party. You know, Boris Johnson, he talked a big game about all that stuff. He let a lot of that money slip through the net.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I am telling you from what I've read and I'm aware of and have listened to, the Russians really hated the British and felt they were an absolute thorn in their side. Yeah. And that's part of the reason they were celebrating when the UK left the EU.
Publicly, yeah, but you know what? We laundered a lot of
privately.
You could still so much money through London,
through the UK.
Yeah, who was doing it? The Russians.
Yeah, I know.
The Russians doing it. Yeah, they can say like, "Oh, there's damn Brits." Anyways, I'm going to buy another street in London, which is what they did.
Which they did.
Yeah, they weren't buying. They were doing it in New York and they were doing it in London. You can have buying up streets in Paris.
You can have two things running simultaneously. You can have the British having the money laundered, but you can have the government saying to the like the EU Parliament, let's continue putting in sanctions against Russia at the same time. Because the way I think they were looking at it was like, these are private citizens who don't particularly like Putin. I don't think they understood the mechanisms of how much control he had. Like, he could whack any of them. And even if he didn't whack them, they had enough family left in Russia that they could whack their families in Russia or put them in the gulag. So you've got, like, Putin isn't crazy. Putin is crazy, but he isn't also stupid. He knew control mechanisms were in place. This is like an old age thing. You know how, like, I think it was the Japanese when they began the unification process. I think in order to maintain control of the shoguns, the lords of different areas, they ensured that family members were still kept inside the emperor's palace.
Yeah, hostages.
Yeah, they're hostages. It's no different to what Putin's doing. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he'd go, right, your grandmother's staying here, you can go. You mess around at all, I'm going to stick your grandmother or your mother inside a gulag. It's not, or your daughters, or they'll disappear. Like, you'll just get rid of them and there's nothing you can do. So it's like a massive control mechanism over those people that were putting money in. But from the British perspective, they're just going, oh, these people don't like Putin. That's why they've moved here. We've got loads of money. They're going to fund our party. They seem like they like democracy. So I can see how two things can be the same thing, if that makes sense. But the Russians, what they seem to be doing is going, we're going to back candidates that have got a more pro-Russia stance. But that doesn't mean that those people are going to just completely adhere. And we know that because, like, I think there's a claim that Boris was the one that told Zelensky to go to war with Russia and not capitulate.
Yeah, because he wants to be like Churchill. That's why he wanted to be like Churchill. Like, he was the guy who's playing tennis with these Russians. You know, like the idea, like if Putin didn't like these guys, he could have seized their assets in Russia. Yeah, he could have gone after stuff. He never did. Not really. Not after Abramovich.
From the war. No, prior to the war, there were. I've got a hit list of about 10 Russians that all.
This is what I'm saying. Like post-war.
Yeah.
Boris used
post-Ukrainian war. Okay,
post-Ukrainian war. Boris Johnson used that stuff to gain popularity and show, oh, I'm like Winston Churchill. You know, we're going to go back these Ukrainians. Before the war, he's like, yeah, launder your money. I don't give a shit. They were donating to the Tory party. Theresa May was like, yeah, don't investigate that. Don't look into Russian interference.
But do you get the difference?
He laundered that money. He laundered that. Putin and those guys laundered that money through the UK and actively weakened British democracy because they knew they could get away with it. Yeah,
but I'm not advocating that either. But I'm saying, like, that is the mechanism of how British finance heavily, like, if you speak to people in the financial sector at the moment, their biggest problem is the fact they've got no foreign, or got a huge dip in foreign investment, and they're all going, Brexit is an absolute shit show. And that's what Britain has based its, that's part of the service sector.
And that's one of the reasons why the EU wanted to not dismantle the British financial sector, but kind of pull it apart a bit because it got too powerful and it was laundering too much money. There was too much influence there. Like, the Russians would be stuck going to New York if they didn't have, London. And New York has its own kind of issues in terms of their regulations on financial stuff. I think it's higher than ours. That's one of the reasons they picked the UK.
But then you've got a massive problem with all the islands offshore. So the reason they gave them that ability to run their own tax affairs is because the British government didn't want to be subsidizing them, which they were going to have to do. So their plan was to allow them to have all these tax deregulation.
That's what I mean, though. But the EU could turn around and say, when we try and rejoin, say, well, you've got all these massive tax havens that other dictators are using to launder money through, countries that are undermining us. You know, if you look at what Russia did to Germany with the gas and stuff, You know, like, it's crazy.
I think it's more problematic than that. Like, you've got Monaco. Monaco's no different.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot tell me that isn't one big money laundering operation.
No,
through
100%.
gambling.
I mean, Slim Jim Ratcliffe went there. You know, like he's an economic migrant. He doesn't like that phrase.
He's a piece of shit, isn't he?
Yeah, well, you know,
Frankly,
I can't say much
in my
because
opinion.
he's a part owner of the football club I like. So, like Roy Keane and Gary Neville, I'll say I prefer not to speak. If I speak, I'm in big trouble. Thank you for sacking Amram, but if I speak, I'm in big trouble.
Oh God! Don't even get me started on Mourinho this week. I was really pissed off with him.
I was pissed off with him as well because of that stuff with that dude.
But
It's
he's
annoying because I
been-
quote Mourinho so often. I don't want to quote Pep. I'm happy, so happy, like you wouldn't believe, so happy, so happy.
What was it? You can't be racist because we had Eusebio. Like, what?
He said, think of the club of like the Benfica history and stuff. I'm like, bro, like if someone said that to Drogba, you'd be throwing hands. Like you'd have punched the geezer in the face. And so yeah, and then he tried to say like, oh, Vinicius is like celebrating too much. And then the worst thing that dude said, he goes, the guy said the alleged racist thing. He goes, I didn't say something racist. I said something homophobic. And I was like, buddy, that is not the defense you think it is. That is not good.
I was pretty hacked off with Neville and Keane. Keane's an economic migrant.
Yeah.
He's a migrant. He's Irish.
Yeah, he's
And
Irish.
Yet, yeah, Radcliffe slags him off.
Yeah.
And he says nothing to his face. He doesn't say anything. He's got one of the biggest platforms.
Yeah.
And he does
But
fuck all about it.
Gary Neville's always been like that because he doesn't say much about the Glazers either. He doesn't say that much about the Glazers, and the Glazers have been the biggest problem since they bought the club. So,
yeah, they've asset stripped it from what I can see.
But that's what you want though. You want people that are good boys in the media who won't talk against you, and then who knows, in the future they might offer you a job, or they might offer you funding, or they might give you something.
I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah,
that was amazing. Madge, awesome.
I've got clankers to fight.
Yes. Good luck.
Be sure to tune in next week for another exciting story from the files of Police Squad.